1. So this is something so natural I don't talk about it much. To give some preface, I've always been sensitive to the paranormal. Much more so when I was a child than I am now. Though I think it's because my mind is cluttered with so much crap I can't seem to sort through it. But that's a whole other story. I just felt like talking about my coolest ghostly roommate. I live with 3 people who are also sensitive. In our old place we came in contact with a spirit. He laid down some ground rules with us which weren't unreasonable. For example, if we left the house at night once we walked through the door, we weren't supposed to look back and just close the door. Once it was closed, we could turn around and open it if we needed to go back in, but just not before closing the door. He said if we did, we would be able to see him, and he didn't want us to. He was a native man and had been scalped, so we understood why he wouldn't want to be seen. He would play with the cat, and his favorite food was bacon. If we didn't leave him some when we made it, he would essentially eat the bacon off your plate. One bite you get that sweet bacon flavor, the next absolutely nothing. We gave him his own plate, different from all the rest, and we would leave him bacon. Sometimes, if money was good, I would leave him a full meal, which he always liked. He used to play with the cat, and was pretty chill in general. Honestly, the only odd thing he would do was watch me in the shower from time to time. He never did anything where he messed with the shower curtains or anything like that, he just watched, which was fine with me. Every once in a while I would see him. For me it's not a see with my eyes, but more of a mental visual, if that makes sense. As long as we were cool, he was cool. We respected each other's space and no one would get chased out. He knew between me and my roomie that if it came down to it, we would get him out of our home. Luckily it never came near anything like that. We just really lived and chilled together. We acknowledged him and made sure to leave stuff out for him every so often. He was chill and kept our home safe from bad juju. It was a nice setup, and I really miss it. Our new place doesn't have a resident spirit, but it does have some that come passing through. They mess with me sometimes, but nothing too bad. Normally it's just me knowing they're there, and that's it. That's all I wanted to share. Just a wholesome story about my previous house ghost. 2. For Christmas one year, I had been given a baby doll that you could put batteries into the back of, and it would cry sometimes and you would have to hug it, press a button on its stomach, so it would shut up. The doll was very annoying, and I only put up with it for a day or two before I had enough of it, and took the batteries out, the only way to get it to stop as there was no off switch. I still liked the doll itself and played with it like a regular baby doll. And as with most of my toys, it ended up in a pile on the floor. I shared a room with my older sister, 5 years my senior, and one night we woke up to hear the baby doll crying. My sister yelled at me to turn the stupid toy off, and in my sleepy little kid brain I thought I forgot to take the batteries out. So I pressed the button to hug it, and it won't stop crying. After several tries I became frustrated and ripped her dress off and took the battery cover off, only to discover there were no batteries. My sister was very annoyed at this point and asked me why I hadn't turned it off. I told her it wouldn't turn off and she said, just take out the batteries. When I told her there weren't any batteries in the doll, she paused for a moment and said, "What do you mean there are no batteries? That's not possible." I told her if she didn't believe me to turn on the light next to her. She did, and the moment the light came on, the doll stopped crying. We both looked at each other and screamed. This woke my mom and dad and older brother up, and they all rushed into our room. When we told them what happened, they, of course, didn't believe us and told us to stop scaring each other and go to bed. Well, we turned off the lights, and just as we're about to go back to sleep, yeah, you guessed it, the doll started crying again. My sister, fed up, climbed down from her top bunk, opened our bedroom window, and threw the doll out onto the concrete below. The doll never made another sound again, but I wish that was the end of our weird electrical issues in my house and paranormal experiences. One of the weirdest things to happen was when I was about 16. My brother was 26 and moved out on his own. My parents divorced when I was 8, and I lived with my mom and older sister. My sister moved into my brother's old room, giving me a room to myself. My mother is a massage therapist, and after some drama with a landlord who was subleasing a building he wasn't supposed to, and just pocketing the rent money his tenants were paying, She had to move her office into our dining room. She set up a radio to play soothing spa music. I swear there was some Enya in there too, for her clients when they came over. For a few weeks I would come home from school and the radio would be on very loud. The first time I turned it off, and when my mom came home I asked her why she had left the radio on. She said she didn't, so we just chalked it up to my sister. The second time was a few days later, so I asked my sister why she kept turning the radio on so loud. She looked at me as if I grew a second head and asked me what I was talking about. I explained what had happened and she told me it wasn't her, and I told her that Mom said it wasn't her. This went on for a little while. Every time all of us were out of the house at the same time, one of us would come back to the radio being turned on. It was pretty funny in an "are we all having the same hallucination" way. One night, we were all in our respective rooms and it happened. The radio turned on. It was blasting the spa music, louder than it had ever been before. We all came out and looked at each other down the hall, and my mom went downstairs and turned off the radio. She came back upstairs and asked us if that really happened. My sister and I simply nodded our heads, and my mom, practically gleeful, starts saying we can't be crazy because that definitely happened. I still want to hold on to the shared hallucination theory at this point. I'm already scared of the dark, I don't need to add another thing to be afraid of. After some discussion about how weird that was and that we were glad we weren't just playing a prank on each other, we went back to our rooms to go to sleep. The last time the radio turned on, I was home alone watching YouTube videos on my laptop when, once again, the radio started blasting so loud my ears were ringing. I called my mom for proof, and this was one of the few times in my life she answered the first time I called her. We couldn't hear each other speak, so I shouted, "That's too loud! Can you turn it down?" It stopped cold. I asked my mom if she heard that, and she confirmed it actually happened. Me, being the scaredy baby I was, started to cry and begged my mom to come home so the ghost wouldn't get me. My mom consoled me and said that if the ghost was still there, that at least it was playing healing music. Mom logic. The radio never turned on by itself again, and my mother was able to find a new office a few months later. I sometimes wonder if I offended the ghost by asking it to turn down the music. So it thought, "Fine, I can see where I'm not wanted," packed its ghost suitcase and left, or if it decided it would be fun to mess with our other appliances and annoy the heck out of me for the rest of my life. Now that I think of it, maybe it's the same thing that possessed the doll. Ugh. I have more stories as well, just not electrical issues. There are things my family members have seen in the house, things my friends have seen or experienced here. My mom is an energy healer as well as a massage therapist, and would take me on ghost hunts with her until the time I was attacked, so I could tell you some of those stories. I used to tell my parents about a life I lived with my mom where she was my sister, and we lived in a horse farm in Spain with our grandparents, and it was so much detail that they would regularly ask me to tell their friends. My mother also went to India where a shaman told her some crazy things about me. I can keep going on as long as there is interest. Update. I was watching Netflix on my PS4, procrastinating as usual, when suddenly my PS4 turned off without me touching it or the controller. I thought the power went out, but the TV was still on, so that's not possible. I went up to the PS4 and pressed the power button. Nothing. I checked the plug in the wall. Yep, still there. But I changed it to the other plug just to make sure it wasn't the outlet. Still nothing. So I decided to check behind my PS4, and the power cord had been pulled out of the PS4. How this happened spontaneously on its own, I'll never be able to tell you. I told my roommate about it when she got home, and she asked me what time this happened. I called my friend right after it happened at 3:28 p.m., and my roommate told me she was talking to her coworker about our house's electrical issues at the same time. If that's not spooky, I don't know what is. 3. The company I work for bought a unit that was previously a palliative care unit and refurbished it as a 24-hour staffed house for disabled adults. Over the years, I have had some creepy experiences here. During handover one night around 10 p.m., I was standing at the start of the hallway that went down to the bedrooms talking to another staff member in the kitchen. I heard a click and looked down the hallway. A client of mine was standing there grinning at me. This in itself does not sound scary at all, until you factor in that this client was not mobile, wheelchair-bound, and I had just assisted him into bed. The other staff member could not see down the hallway, but she did see the expression on my face and told me I went white. I know this sounds weird, and it is very hard to explain, but the spookiest thing about it was the look on his face. It honestly looked exactly like him, but at the same time, it didn't. He had this huge grin on his face, and it looked like something you would see in a scary ghost movie. I turned to the other staff member to say something, turned back, and it was gone. I have an hour drive between my workplace and home, and this shook me up so much that I had to have the overhead light in my car on the whole way, because it felt like he was sitting behind me. To this day, I still can't quite make sense of it, but the feeling I got was like something evil was wearing his likeness, as this man was the sweetest non-threatening client I have ever assisted in my career. Anyway, the reason I'm posting now, I'm on shift for another glorious overnight stay. The heavy and scary feeling has not been too bad lately, so my guard is down. Ghosts and creepy stuff have not been on my mind, and it's been pretty busy, so I've just been doing my thing, cleaning, etc. At the end of the hallway is the toilet, and the toilet light is connected to one of those overhead fan and duct type things, and it is old, so it's pretty noisy. After emptying the urine bottles into the toilet, I decide to turn the light off. Previously, I would leave it on all night, because of the creepy feeling and not wanting to look down in the dark toilet. I put all the equipment back into the laundry, one door down from the toilet, and come back out to see the light back on. I feel like I can be a bit doughy at times, so I just thought I hadn't turned the light off, and just thought I did. I turn the light off, duck into the laundry to grab the mop, and come back out to see the toilet light back on. Now I know I turned it off this time, so I'm starting to low-key freak, but I try to convince myself I'm an adult, and quickly duck in and turn it back off. I stood there for 5 minutes outside the toilet in the lit hallway to convince myself it's off, and staying off. I decide to go clean the kitchen to take my mind off it, as there is still 5 hours of my shift to go. I legit just went to pee and the light is back on. I'm now hiding in the lounge room trying to ignore my full bladder and the sounds coming from down the hallway. I'm just wondering if anyone has any advice. Usually it's low-key things like hearing the doors open when everyone is in bed, no mobile clients in unit, or thinking I heard someone call out when they were all asleep. 4. It was a night like any other. Nothing eventful had really happened that day, and I was just settling down with my husband for bedtime at around 10:30 p.m. Our small dog jumped up to join us on the bed, as usual, and cozied herself up ready to sleep. We turned out the bedroom light and started drifting off to sleep. For a bit of context, the house we were living in at this time was a 2-small-bedroom house with no real hallway, so you could just about see into any of the other rooms no matter which doorway you stood in. You could see directly into the kitchen from the main bedroom and so on. The kitchen had a small back area where the toilet was situated, and just next to that was the back door, which had one of those plastic dog doors for a small dog. Back to the story, however. Just as I started to drift off to sleep, I was startled awake by the sound of the dog door. No big deal, I thought. My dog must have just gone out to do her business, right? Until I realized my dog was still on the bed. She had also perked up at the sound and started trembling and growling. So I turned to look in the kitchen and see this small, greyish-skinned creature staring at me through the gaps of my kitchen chairs. It wasn't quite like one of those stereotypical grey aliens that is commonly brought up in these types of stories, because instead of the usual description of big teardrop face with huge black eyes and expressionless face, this one had a rather snarled up face and the eyes a little more detailed, rather than a black sclera type of eye, if that makes any sense. However, it had the other typical features, small and slender, maybe 4 foot tall at most, skin smooth, pale, greyish, almost green, and devoid of hair, and any kind of gender-typical anatomy. Like any other person, the sight of this creature scared the absolute shit out of me, so I practically shrieked when I noticed it standing in my kitchen. And I'm not the type of girl that usually shrieks when scared like that, but holy shit. Even recalling all this to tell the story has me trembling. At this point, the shriek I'd let out woke my could-sleep-through-an-explosion husband up. I told him there was something in the kitchen, and he ran with our dog at his heels barking. As he ran, I heard the dog door flap open and close again, and by that time the creature was gone. The real kicker: as my husband was checking around the house, I checked the time on hubby's bedside table alarm clock. I was thinking it was maybe 11 p.m. at most, since I was only just drifting off to sleep after 10:39 p.m., right? Wrong. The time on the clock read 2:35 a.m. So where did that time go? What did I see that night? I know that it may be a fairly mild experience as far as they go, I think. All I know is that I hope it never happens again, and that I haven't wanted a dog door in any of the houses I have lived in since that night. Ever again. 5. I'm a big believer in anything to do with the spiritual world, demons, mediums, psychics, the lot. On the other hand, my brother is a complete skeptic and doesn't believe in anything to do with it, and my mom is sort of neither here nor there about it. Anyway, I live with my mom, my brother, and our 2 cats, and one day last summer when we were all home, apart from the cats, my brother thought it would be a fun idea to play a prank on me, pretending that there was a spirit in the house. He went all out for this prank, taking blurred photos, making noises, tapping on my door, leaving handprints on the walls, moving items around the house. And I fully believed all of it. During the prank, before he revealed that it was all fake, I went into his bedroom, shut his door, locked it, proceeded to have a breakdown and started making plans to leave the house. Yes, it was that believable. And I'm gullible. When all of a sudden, bang, 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 on his door. Extremely violent banging. I was shocked and stood there frozen. A few minutes passed and I decided to pull out my phone and record it, to have evidence if it was to happen again. My brother was also silent, and said nothing during this time, obviously acting shocked. After a few minutes of me recording, my brother goes to me, "Put away your phone. Whatever it is knows you're filming and won't act." So I put my phone away, and the moment I turned the recorder off, bang, 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 again on his door. And I looked down at the crack between the door and the floor, and saw a dark shadow pass by. Then I started freaking out and started having the onset of a panic attack when my brother turns to me and goes, "It was a prank, everything I done. The camera, the noises, the handprints were all me." So I turn to him and go, "Who's banging on the door then?" And he replies with, "I sent Mum, who was downstairs at the time asleep, a message to come up and bang on the door." I stood there and thought that was a bit odd because, 1, I didn't hear anyone come upstairs, and our stairs are old and creaky and you can hear when someone goes up or down them. 2, I didn't hear anyone go down them or even open a door and enter another room. So I proceeded to unlock his door and leave his room. I went to the room to the right of his, which is our mum's room, to see if she was there, and she wasn't. So I went downstairs into the living room, the farthest room in the house from my brother's rooms, and she was fast asleep on the couch. I woke her up and questioned her, asking, "Why did you bang on the door like that? I was about to have a panic attack." Blah, blah, blah. And she replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." To which I responded with, "My brother sent you a message, saying to come upstairs and bang on the door to scare me." She pulled out her phone and handed it to me, and I checked every messenger app she had, and she hadn't received any message that my brother claimed he sent. My mum is also not tech-savvy enough to know how to delete messages. Trust me, she's not. "It was banging on the door then," I asked her. "Did you not hear it?" She replied with, "No, I was fast asleep." She naps every day, nothing unusual. I went back upstairs to tell my brother to show me his phone to see the message. And he did, and the message never sent. It had that red exclamation mark thingy. My family speculated that it was one of our cats, the one that's a beast. But if he wants our attention whilst we are in our rooms, he will scratch the door and meow, and both cats were out at the time. Also, no matter how fat our cat is, he could not have created that much force against a door. So I have no idea who was hitting that door. And if it was a spirit, did my brother anger it for pretending to be it? I don't know. I still think about it till this day. And other things have happened that are weird around the house since then. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 138. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'm going to keep the outro brief on this one. I don't know what's with me. I feel like I'm getting better, and then I'm starting to get worse again health-wise. It's bloody annoying. I think I've just got some kind of bug that I can't seem to shake. I'm trying to avoid going to the doctor because, quite frankly, I've seen enough doctors in the past few years. We'll see how it goes. I probably won't be streaming this weekend. I mean, if I'm feeling better, I will. But if I'm not, you should be able to find me in the Discord. Somebody post a link if I forget to do it. Kind of pop in and out of there throughout the day, even when I'm working, to be honest with you. I'll check in, see if anybody needs me. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.